Well, here's our old rack. We have it right here, and then here's our replacement rack. Now, if you look at this, there's a difference between the two racks. On our old rack, you can see that the outer tie rod ends are attached to it. On the new rack, this is basically how you're going to get it. It's not going to come with the outer tie rod ends. Now, you have a choice to make. I mean, at this point, you could either take the old tie rod ends off of the old rack and transfer them onto the new rack. But I'll tell you what, for the price of what the tie rod ends sell for, you're almost better off just to replace them if you wouldn't put the new tie rod ends on it. Because after you do that, this is basically the complete steering system for our Mustang. So what we want to do, first off, let's just take a look at what the tie rod ends look like. Now, in some of these too, there'll be a left and there'll be a right, so you want to kind of identify that. I think on ours it's either way. And the difference will be is the threads on the tie rod end. So if you start the tie rod end onto the threads of the rack and it doesn't seem like it's going to go quite right, check and make sure you have the right tie rod end on it. Now, when you get the tie rod end, here's basically what you're going to get. There's our tie rod end, there's the boot, there's our nut, and then also we have a jam nut, we have a grease fitting and a cotter pin. Now, that's another nice thing to kind of mention here. On some racks, now this one here on our old rack, we have the grease fittings are on the rack, but on a lot of rack and pinion setups, originally from the factory, they won't come with a greasable joint. So in that case, if you had a tie rod end on the old rack that didn't have a grease fitting, on the new rack, you're going to have one. Before we install our outer tie rod ends, what we want to do first, so we need to take a measurement. Now, what this is going to do, where the tie rod ends connect to the spindles, that's actually the toe adjustment for the car. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to make the initial measurement to find out where the jam nut is going to be located at, basically where the tie rod end is going to be located at on the rack. Once we get the rack installed on the car, we're going to do another measurement, make any kind of adjustment that may be needed. And then finally, the last step is the vehicle is going to have to go and have a front end alignment done on it. But what I want to do for now, just a real quick measurement. I'm going to go to the end of the boot to the back of the jam nut and take that measurement. Just do one side at a time. And we're about 3 3/4. Now, this measurement here really isn't that critical because we're going to go back and do another measurement once it's mounted on the car. But that'll save us a lot of time in locating the tie rod end onto the rack. So we're 3 3/4 inches. So what I want to do is go ahead and take our jam nut, thread it onto the rack. And like I say, if you have a problem, the jam nut doesn't want to go right on there, check and see if you have the right tie rod end because there may be a left and a right. And then we'll take a measurement again. Boy, we're pretty close right there. That's 3 3/4 right where I'm at. So what I'm going to do now is go ahead and thread our tie rod end on. It'll take a few turns to get it on there. Okay, once I have it to the jam nut, I'm right up against it right now. Let's just double check our measurement. It was 3 3/4 inches. And we're right there. So what I want to do now is I just want to snug up the jam nut against the tie rod end because like I say, once we get on the vehicle, we'll go ahead and do our final adjustment on it. There we are. Okay, another step we need to do too is we want to go ahead and install our grease fitting. Now, not all tie rod ends are going to have a grease fitting with them, but if it has a threaded hole in there, look in your package and see if you can locate the grease fitting. If there's no hole, then it's not going to be a greasable part. Something else to mention too on some of the tie rod ends, and this one here is threaded all the way through, but some of them won't be threaded, and the actual tapping device will be the grease fitting itself. It'll actually tap the threads in as you install it. And there we are. Okay, that side's done. We'll do the same thing to the other side. Okay, we've got the grease fitting installed. Both of the tie rod ends are on. Now, there's one more thing we need to do before we bring it over to the car. Now that's the mounting. Now if you look, all we have right now is 2 holes. Now the mount bushings, now there might be more than one style that comes with your rack, but on our application we're using what's called a split bushing. Now how that installs is one end goes on one end of the rack, one side of the rack, then the other half goes on the other side of the rack. And there we are, that's basically it. Do the same thing on both ends. And you know what, this is going to correct another problem that this car had because the bushings on this rack were destroyed. Now what will happen if you have a bushing that's worn out is whenever you turn the steering wheel, the rack will actually be allowed to move. So you'll have that movement before it even moves the tires of the vehicle. And that's something else I want to bring up. On our application, we had 2 choices for the rack. We had just the regular style rack, and then we had what's called a sport rack, and that's what we're putting on this. Now here's the difference. The regular rack takes so many turns to turn the wheels lock to lock. Now what that means is turn the wheels all the way to one way and then turn them back all the way to the other way. How many turns of the steering wheel it takes to do that? Well, this rack is a lot slower than this rack, the sport rack. And what that means, it takes less turns to get it to turn one way or the other. That's going to really make a big difference in the way the vehicle is going to steer. It's going to give it a lot more responsive steering. We've got this rack all ready to be installed on the car. Let's go ahead and put it on. As with any job, to do it right, you'll need the right tools. The nice thing is that jobs today don't require a large, expensive assortment. Basic hand tools are generally all you'll need. In case where a specialty tool is required, be sure to check with AutoZone's Loan a Tool program. They have many specialty tools that can help you complete your job a lot quicker and easier. The first things you'll need are a socket set, torque wrench, drop light, tape measure, tie rod separator, and a repair manual for your specific vehicle. You may also need screwdrivers or pliers to remove some components. We will also need power steering fluid to replace what will be lost during the repair.
Be cautious when working under the hood. If the engine has been running, components will be extremely hot, so be careful what you touch. When working around a running engine, it is important to be alert and never wear loose clothing or a necktie that can get tangled in belts, pulleys, or the fan. When lifting a vehicle, never work under it until it has been secured with wheel blocks and securely positioned on jack stands. A hydraulic jack alone is never enough. Be cautious when working with oils and chemicals. Many are damaging to the groundwater environment and toxic to people and animals. Never drain or pour chemicals into the ground or sewer systems. Local municipalities and counties offer resources for proper disposal. And always remember to wear your safety glasses.
Get in the zone, AutoZone.
Get the entire DVD for this repair and all other procedures covered in the Complete Car Care series at your local AutoZone store.